Hello, my name is Lauren and I am a nursing student here to provide you and your child education on their type 1 diabetes diagnosis. Type 1 diabetes is an enormous and possibly overwhelming diagnosis to receive, and especially for a child to receive. It will take and does take a lot of time and effort on both the parents and the child's part to help being able to understand and manage the type 1 diabetes. There is so much to learn with type 1 diabetes, but there are main aspects that are most important to be understood. These include blood glucose, also called blood sugar level control, insulin management, and insulin is the medication you give yourself for your type 1 diabetes, also nutrition and exercise. There is so much to cover with these topics. I'll focus mainly on nutrition and carbohydrate counting and why it's important. Other than managing blood sugar levels, how to administer your insulin and how much insulin and when to give yourself the insulin, these are all very important things that we can discuss at a later time. But it is also very important to understand that you need to exercise properly and manage your nutrition, especially your carbohydrates. To begin with, for nutrition, it is very important to be able to read and understand food labels and to know what you're looking for on a food label. Also, you need to eat at regularly interval times, so about 3 meals every 4 to 6 hours. And it is also very important not to skip meals. The first important part of nutrition is meal planning. Meal planning is important to do because it can help you time when to eat and when to take your insulin. When meal planning, it is important to look at fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. These are all things that be understood, but carbohydrates are the most important because carbs have the largest effect on your blood sugar. A carbohydrate is a type of sugar that can be broken down in your body and used for energy. Carbohydrates are found in many foods that you think of, such as breads, pastas, rice, but they can also be found in starchy vegetables, fruit, and dairy products. Now that you know what carbs are, you need to be able to know how to count them. Counting carbohydrates with diabetes is important because it can help you keep you in control of your blood sugar and control how much insulin you give yourself. To begin with, carbs are measured and counted in things called grams. Grams is a unit of weight just as a pound is, but they are the things you'll see on food labels when you're looking and understanding a food label. And this is important to know because the amount of insulin, the medicine you give yourself, is based on the amount of grams of carbohydrates you have eaten. So, now that you know what carbs are and what grams are, we have this carb counting handout that you can find all over the internet, but I created this one, and it basically breaks down carbs into pre-portioned or preset groups of food to eat. So these things are called carb exchange portions. A carb exchange portion is equal to 15 grams of carbohydrates. So for example, this 1 cup of milk, 8 fluid ounces, is going to be 1 carb exchange portion, which equals to 15 grams of carbohydrates. This is important because your dietitian will give you a set number of carbs that you should consume at each meal, typically between like 30 and 60 carbs per meal. Sometimes that can be hard to add all that up with all the different foods, so this gives you an easier way to pre-portion your food and to know how many of these pre-portioned foods to eat to equal your carb amount. For example, if your dietitian gives you 60 carbs to eat at breakfast, you can break that into how many carb exchanges. It would be 4 because you would do 60 divided by the 15 grams of carbs. It will equal 4 carb exchange portions. So for breakfast, you could do 1 cup of milk, a half cup of oatmeal, 1 small banana, and 2 tablespoons of raisins. And those 4 carb exchange portions will equal your 60 grams of carbohydrates that you need to consume. Therefore, you'll be able to know how much insulin, the medicine that you take to manage diabetes, how much you give yourself after or before you've eaten your meal, and when to do it. So this is why meal planning and counting carbohydrates is very helpful and important to understand and being able to manage your child's diabetes. You can pre-portion foods using tools such as glass, measuring cups, plastic measuring cups, to pre-portion the foods and to be able to know how many grams of carbohydrates are in each pre-portioned food. And then you can just take your carb counting handout or any carb exchange handout to know what exactly you can put in these pre-portioned foods. And this can be very important part of your child's diabetes, and you'll be able to give your child a healthy and nutritious meal while managing their type 1 diabetes.